Welcome to the Biotech Startups podcast by Exceeder. Join us as we speak with first-time founders, serial entrepreneurs, and experienced investors about the challenges and triumphs of running a biotech startup, from pre-seed to IPO, with your host, John Chi. In our last episode, we spoke with Shekhar Mitra about his experience as a director of R&D in Asia and the challenges and triumphs he faced taking innovation to a global scale. We also discussed his relocation to China for a groundbreaking project and the mindset that drove him to establish the first innovation center in Asia. Lastly, we dove into the realm of luxury and premium brands and discussed how to redefine consumer experiences by leveraging cutting-edge technologies and creating emotional connections with brands. If you missed it, be sure to listen to part 3. In part 4, we talk with Shekhar about his time at Procter Gamble and the entrepreneurial opportunities he found there, sharing how these experiences laid the foundation for his future endeavors as an entrepreneur and mentor. We also discuss his involvement in developing an innovative drug from natural sources, a revolutionary mouthpiece for oral health, and his work with the Cincinnati Art Museum and Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers, highlighting his commitment to community, diversity, creativity, and leadership in both the arts and STEM fields.
So now you've spent a lot of time at P&G. You're in leadership, and this must have been I'm going to imagine a very emotional kind of moment to eventually leave P&G. When did you know it was time, and when did you know what was next?
Yeah, I felt, now I look back and I say, you know what, if I were to do anything differently, if I had the scope, I would always be an entrepreneur. I have that spirit in me, and I've gotten some opportunities within the four walls of a big corporation to be entrepreneurial. And I felt like I could have and should have retired a bit earlier. So I had, running space to start my own things. I had ideas to do that. But by the time I retired, I was lucky to retire relatively young, at the age of 57, 58. I've been retired for almost 9 years now, and, I felt like, okay, I've done enough. The organization was taken care of, because we have succession plans and all of that. And after 29 odd years, I had a special assignment to think with a small team of people, innovation of the future for for the entire company. So I was on that team called Leap Team for 6 months. That was breakthrough work by a bunch of people that were selected to do it for the whole company. After that work was over, I said, I need to now go out and do some things on my own, And yes, I had many ideas to start certain companies, but I felt like I could probably contribute. And, I have a lot of connections. People do trust me and do know what my capabilities are. So I was getting a lot of offers, including corporations, big corporations. But I didn't want that anymore, right? And so I signed on to some board stuff, International Flavors Fragrances. I was on the innovation committee of the board. I had some other board assignments, Aura Brush, etc. But most importantly, what I wanted to do was I knew so many people, ex-retirees of P&G or other companies. I felt like with all the knowledge we had, we could really serve the needs of lots of companies that could benefit from our thinking approach on brands. And that's what got me into Your Encore, which was a storehouse of talent pool of mostly ex-P&Gers. And I did some strategic thinking for Your Encore to lay out high-end, innovation, consulting roles. But that was for 5 or 6 years I did that. But most importantly, my focus was to associate with a few breakthrough ventures where outside ideas and talent could infuse and bring these ventures to a much higher elevated level, make some of those connections where these venture platforms could apply. And that's the role that I eventually have come down to over the last 4 or 5 years. And I also wanted to spend some time on nonprofit and contribution, etc. But now my role is, hey, I work with some of these 4 or 5 breakthrough ventures, each of them breakthrough in their own way. But just like ventures, they're risky, and I can take enough risks at this stage, But I want to make them successful so that all the people who are putting their sweat and tears into it also come out to be successful. For me, success to me is not anymore as much as making more and more money. I have enough to live by. But at the same time, who doesn't want more money? If something exits, that's great for me. But I'm not a big shareholder of any one of these. But I'm a substantial influencer for all of these ventures. So I'm not only just on the board of the advisory board, I roll up my sleeves to work with these teams, bring talent in from outside, bring the connectivity to other companies that can benefit from these. And thereby these ventures can also be successful. That's what the role I'm playing.
I love that, because I think as I was starting my career, something that was incredibly difficult was not having the network, or I just didn't know anybody.
Exactly.
And I didn't know anybody. And it's really hard, as much as I wanted to believe that the network was less important, it's incredibly important. Like, it's so important. And connecting the dots and meeting the right people, the right technical talent, whatever it may be, is so important. So I love this kind of element that you are enabling founders who are starting their journey to lean onto your history, experience, your Rolodex, just to help them reach the success that you've enjoyed throughout your career. So that's amazing to hear. And something that you mentioned is your nonprofit work and the community building and the leadership building. I know one of your initiatives is you have a long time involvement with the Cincinnati Art Museum.
Yes.
And your wife and you.
My wife mostly, yes.
Yeah, your wife. Can you talk about a little bit about your involvement, and your primarily your wife's involvement with the Cincinnati Art Museum?
Well, I think my wife has a tremendous passion for not only teaching but to contribute to the community. She's got a PhD in English literature, but when we were meeting, we were both students. Or I was a PhD student, she was a master's student. But she went on her own volition into art appreciation, learning art appreciation. And along the years, she's been 24 years as a docent. She learned to be a docent. And docent is not easy, and it's not a paid job, And Cincinnati Art Museum is probably one of the region's top, not only the region's top, but one of the premier museums in North America, I would say. Because we are very fortunate to have a lot of people who've contributed and granted and given their, art and everything, including Procter Gamble company. So it's a very, very well-known, fantastic museum. And she learned how to be a docent. And now she's only one of the most sought-after docents. And now she's on the board for the last 4 years. They recruited her on the board, which is an extremely prestigious position for someone who's a teacher by profession to be on this board. So highly sought after. She's one of the few, I think only one, who's probably not only on the board, but also an active docent. In fact, this morning she's docenting with 5th graders or 7th graders.
Cool.
What a joy she gets out of
so
that.
Cool.
And we decided that, we are also very fortunate. We are not rich, but we are fortunate. We have enough. And we felt like Cincinnati Art Museum needed to have more exposure and seek out diverse groups of representation. And in this region, South Asians and Southeast Asians have grown. And there was a small gallery for the Asian gallery, but nothing that, elaborate. So we decided to be major sponsors for the South Asian gallery, which is absolutely phenomenal. All this artwork was there from, and that whole idea there was, my wife and I thought about it and we said, not only do we want to draw more diverse groups of people into the Cincinnati Art Museum, from the community and the extended community around our state, but we also want to kind of have a theme that says, look, India and these countries, Bangladesh and all of these countries, all we hear about are religious rights, Muslims and Hindus and Christians and this. We never think about the fact that art has grown for thousands of years in this part of the world, where Christian artists and Muslim artists and the Hindu artists all work together and created art. And what a wonderful theme, right? So that is kind of the theme. So if you come, and I would love to invite you to come and be with us and visit us. And if you go through the museum, the little gallery we created from our funds has art that was done by Hindu Southern Indians. Then there was art that is inspired by Christians in Goa, which is a Portuguese colony. Then art done by Muslims, 400-500 years ago in India under the auspices of, the Raj, So even the kings and the Muslim rulers encouraged art irrespective of who the artist was and what religion they came from. So when you ask a question, when you are in a debate about all the religious rights and everything that's going on, that's all politics. If you really look at the essence of art, literature, anything that's creative, it's the crossroads and the experiences of different religions, different peoples, all coming together. Like I said, innovation happens at the crossroads of many diverse themes, And that was her whole idea. And so not only is my wife a teacher, but we also, I've learned a lot in this area. And we have now gotten very involved in the museum. But we are also involved with the ballet. We are involved with the theater, because we really believe that, this country has given us a lot. We are extremely lucky, right? So we now want to give back to the community. We've educated our children, right? And they're all doing fine, they're doing well, but now it's like, okay, we also need to give something back.
Absolutely. I was like in my mind fist pumping. I'm like, yes, this is exactly it. Art as a unifying, it unifies the community and really just shows that like we're not at odds with each other. And like just
Heart of hearts, humans are all good. Everything, I'm not going to get into politics, but everything that's going on in the Middle East today or in Ukraine or whatever, if you look at the fundamentals down to I've been to Kiev many, many times on business, and it's so sad to hear about everything that's going on. But whatever the reason and the politics, is the politics that's driving it. People in the fundamental, they don't want to be in this situation. They don't want to create this kind of be in suffering like this, and everyone has the right to live and
Yep.
and contribute to their fullest. And I hope that, art and music and things that I find are really ones that can unify vast, different cultures, and they can bring it together if you really do it in the right way.
Totally. And you mentioned about, and I love hearing that your wife is, with fifth graders and the younger and the future generation.
Yeah.
I know you also co-founded the Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers.
I did.
Can you talk about how you founded that and its mission?
Yeah, I always felt that growing up at a big corporation like P&G, when I first came here, like I said to you, initial part of our dialogue here, that, I felt a bit lost. There was only 11 Asians in headquarters.
Yeah.
Now there are more than 300. There are COOs and presidents at P&G that are of Asian origin. My time, there was no one, And Mr. A.G. Lafley, one of the CEOs I mentioned during our discussion, he had come in from Japan, and I had just been brought back from China because our oral care business in US was in trouble. So they wanted me to kind of create innovation for oral care. So 2000, when I came back, he assigned me to create, he and his HR head assigned me to create affinity group for Asians within P&G. And it was only 30, 40 of us. Like I said, now there are 300-400 in headquarters. Of course, in India organization and in Thailand and other places, all Asians all over, right? Philippines, but headquarters, which is the hub of P&G. And I felt like we had certain things that we needed to really build as leaders, as Asians. I was brought up in a place where I never showed off how much I scored in science or history or whatever. The expectation was that, you got 90s, when I was growing up. My mother said, okay, not first or second or third, you didn't do enough hard work, And we Asians, generally our upbringing is we don't talk about ourselves. So I was saying that was actually not the right thing. On the other hand, talking too much and being too aggressive is also not right. There's a balance in a leadership style. And I felt like without changing ourselves within P&G, someone like me, I could be very effective. I could contribute in a meeting and not stay silent, so that I was going unnoticed during my initial, leadership roles and very early on, 30 years ago. And I felt like there were certain things I was observing that I could do when I was the affinity in charge at P&G, that I could start creating training. I could start bringing in my Caucasian friends to train people, not to change the future generation of Asian leaders, but to create with their style. My style, for instance, is very consensus. I like to listen to everyone, then I make a decision. Not that I'm pleasing everyone. Right? No, you cannot please everyone, right? So it's a consensus style, listening, right? And some of my colleagues were quite effective making a decision and hard decision right there and making it right there and didn't even care hoots about, how the others felt. But I would do it very softly and explain to them why I made the decision. The effect perhaps was the same. I feel mine is more long-lasting approach to creating relationships, So I thought to myself at P&G while I was doing this leadership that I could get people to learn through experiences and case studies. Then a friend, ex-colleague of mine, Tom Fernandez and myself, he was from the manufacturing side and I was from the innovation R&D side. We said, what? With a bunch of some of our friends, we said, what? I bet you all the stuff we are doing within P&G, the Asian community across big organizations, as middle organizations needs it. That cemented in my mind the mission for creating an organization called Society of Asian Scientists and Engineers. It's not restricted to only scientists and engineers. Anybody can come in. It's not restricted to Asians only. In fact, we have in our recruiting sessions for big companies coming in, we encourage people from all walks of life to come in and recruit with these big corporations. It's great conventions we have once a year. And that cemented the mission, which is to develop the future generation of Asian leaders who are scientists or engineers by background or training. because that's what's missing. Now you see, all the CEOs, more board members, etc. But it's a process, and it has to start early on to create the future generation. Now, John, I'm very proud of this organization, and it's very close to my heart. And the CEO, Khan Vu, who is a Vietnamese, Khan Vu is the CEO of this organization. We have a terrific board of many industry representatives from GE all the way to P&G. And Khan Vu and his people have done a phenomenal job. We have women's leadership coaching now. We have more than 3,000 participants every year. We have regional conferences, 4 regional conferences. We have recruiting sessions where you name it. The top companies are coming to recruit for 2 days. The next generation of collegiates who have graduated, they get the talent from the SASE convention. We have top-notch speakers and politicians coming to talk. We have CEOs, of Northrop Grumman and GE coming to talk to, giving keynote speeches. So now if you go out to SASE on October 3rd, which is the convention in Atlanta, if you go to one of these, you will see the spirit of learning just coming, together. So we have all these sessions of women leaders talking to women of different levels within professional organizations, what they have faced, or panels discuss it. You can imagine, right?
Yeah.
I'm not describing it the right way, but you can imagine how much learning there is from people like all of us who've been in these situations.
That's incredible. And honestly, I'm thinking back on when the P&G CEO went to the career fair at school, and you just happened to get connected. And this conference is connecting people across the board. Like,
they're getting jobs at Shell, they're getting summer internships at Northrop Grumman, they're getting summer internship at Eli Lilly. I mean, imagine, we didn't have that.
Yeah,
perhaps
that's so
you were
crazy.
much younger than me. You might not have had that either.
That's so amazing, because I think you basically have created that moment where you got recruited by P&G at scale.
Exactly.
It's at scale versus just praying that someone amazing shows up to your career fair that you happen to be at. This is no, you in your area, we are going to connect you with the leaders in industry who can kind of show you the ropes and mentor you. And I love to hear that.
Very well characterized. Very well summarized. That's how they're feeling, the younger generation. The mid-tier professionals feeling like they're learning from those who've gone through the trenches. The upper level VPs who are coming in and having, talking to them, but the VPs themselves are learning through network. The VP of innovation at GE is learning from the VP of innovation at P&G, albeit different industries. But look, over networking, over dinner, over lunch for 3 days.
I mean, at least despite the difference in industry, Crest white strips came from the packaging department.
Correct.
So why wouldn't this be beneficial, even if you're like GE, or if you're in pharma, or if whatever industry might be? That's amazing to hear that you have created this ecosystem.
Is at crossroads of diversity and connections. Innovation, creativity is all about connections. The most creative people I've come across are the ones that make connections, right?
Absolutely.
And so you have hit the nail on the head. That's the opportunity that SASE is doing. You should get to meet Khan Vu. He's very inspirational to me. And he's a CEO. He came in when we could hardly offer him a salary, And now he's the CEO and doing well. And I think SASE has a fantastic budget supported by corporations and members.
So cool.
We don't charge the college members. We don't charge them because
that's amazing. And that's something too that I think when I was, thinking about choices of school, you're like it almost feels like it's stratified. Some schools have access to certain networks.
Yes.
But it doesn't even matter. Like, you don't have to go to Harvard.
Right.
And
No.
because there's like a winner and loser. You can go, there's amazing institutions all over the place. And I love that you are democratizing the opportunity for the future generation versus I think when I was going through that process, it felt kind of gatekeepy. There was like people were creating these barriers and, you know, there was such a strong emphasis, like you have to go to this school to be able to get access to those opportunities. And it really broke my heart because there's so many bright people, hardworking people all over the world.
All over, and that's one thing I've come across now, doesn't matter what university you go through, it's your attitude and how much of an entrepreneur and creative you are, how much of a leadership learning you have, constant learning and conscious learning. That's what gives you the competitive advantage. In the age of machine language, right? I mean, and machines, AI doing the work. What's going to differentiate the leaders of the future from the machines? Machines will be able to put together everything, but it's the thinkers, it's the leaders who are going to lead to create better machines or better enterprises. That's going to be the key, right? And leaders with transparency, with empathy, with honesty, with risk-taking, those are the ones that'll really make it, I think, in the age of AI and machines.
Totally. And something as you were describing that, like what it means to kind of stand out is we have this saying, and it's not my saying, I didn't make it up, but it's like you hire for attitude and you train for aptitude.
Fantastic.
It's like
I should try it right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's hire for attitude, train for aptitude. And from our perspective, it's like you can't train attitude.
No.
Like you can't train that. Like if someone is willing to put in the work, they might not know all the ins and outs today, but you can train that. If they're willing to put in the work. That's correct. Right. And
that's true.
I love that. And as you're looking forward 1 year, 2 years, for you and Intrapreneur and your involvement with early stage venture and the society, what's in store for you?
Oh, very exciting. What I'm finding is that learning never stops and learning builds on learning, right? So what I'm finding is that this part of my life, which is built on past learnings, but I'm learning new things. I'm associated with a breakthrough drug from new natural sources, which is going to be the only drug in the market when FDA approves it, which will not only get rid of very, very challenging eczema on children all the way to adults, but also be an antibiotic. So it'll get rid of infection from eczema. Okay. And it comes from a natural source, talking about nature, how smart nature is. It comes from a plant extract in Amazon. I'm associated with a company that's taking tap water under pressure and centrifugation, creates ultrafine bubbles that is taking nutrients into plant cells and growing them by 2-3 times with half the fertilizer, penetrating benefit ingredients into skin cells, and increasing fermentation yields by 30-40%. It's called hydrosome. I'm associated with a company founded by somebody who's designed endoscopes for, surgical instruments, Mike Hanachek in Palo Alto, in Menlo Park. It's called Proclaim Health, that company, that will be the first personalized mouthpiece that has 60 small jets, pumps rinse through it for 7 seconds, completely clean the entire mouth and your teeth. And it has shown 85% reduction in bleeding gums. 7 seconds of usage. You don't need to floss anymore.
Whoa.
Right?
And it's chemical free. Chemical
free. Just water. Pump water through it. You can see that. Proclaim Health. Okay. I'm associated with a company that's the best hair growth product called Yuva Therapeutics. Press releases out there. Bosley MD has licensed that product. A big CPG company is now working on this. Also from a plant extract, that's, what it's doing is rejuvenating mitochondria, which is the energy producing part of our cells.
Wow.
Look up Uva Therapeutics. So what I'm saying is, each one of these I'm lucky to be associated with as a board member, advisor, whatever. It's not, if it exits, yeah, fine, I make money. But I want to make them successful. Why? Because I'm learning so much, so many new things. Not only to work with small, nimble, agile organizations that are creating this, and I'm trying to be part of that and contributing by making not only connections, but bringing in new ideas. But most importantly for me, my learning has multiplied 5, 10 times from what I had done in the past. So I feel like, I want to live a long life just because I'm excited and passionate about this. And then, contributing to really solve in small ways orphanages problems or animal shelters or community giving and taking from the community is a, what I would say, an added, passion of my wife and I and our family together. So I think, I'm very excited, and I know that I don't have enough time, but at the same time, every day is, I feel like I'm very, very lucky. And like I said, oh my God, I mean, I keep myself busy, and my wife and we travel a lot on his history, and we are just back from Antarctic and all of that. We love those kinds of travel. But, my wife says, the kind of work you're doing, I mean, you're passionate, but it looks like you're working harder than you used to work at P&G. But, clearly I don't make the kind of money I used to make at P&G, right? I mean,
yeah. I mean, look, everything that you just described is what keeps you young.
Exactly.
That's what keeps you young.
I really believe it. I really believe that.
That's what keeps you young. You're learning, you're getting out there, and you're giving back to the community. And I think that really resonates with me, because I'm a firm believer in giving back to the community, because the community in which an individual grows up in, you owe it a lot to the community that stood you up. And so I think it's a civic duty for all of us to give back and support the folks that versus, just being like, I did it on my own. I don't believe in that. So that's amazing to hear. And in our traditional closing fashion, we have 2 closing questions. And Shekhar, you've been so generous with your time, first and foremost. But the first question is, would you like to give any shout outs to anyone who has supported you along the way?
Oh, absolutely. I really have to say that my mother had made a lot of sacrifices as I was growing up, because it was a joint family. It was a complex situation, refugees trying to stand up on their legs. And my father had a good job. My uncles had found good jobs, etc. But my mother had to bear the brunt of a big family. And like I said, unfortunately, she didn't live that long, not long enough. I have to say my mentors, Professor Burson, people who really held my hand while I was taking a risk and made it seem really easy. Number of mentors within Procter Gamble company. I have to say that. I have to say that my wife's sacrifices, without those, today I would not be who I am. I would not have accomplished all of this. And my children for keeping me challenged. My son, very good golfer. I have tendonitis and aches and pains, and he's given me a set of iron, and I have to now play golf with my heart. And my youngest one is in California, San Francisco, and I hope I'm going to connect you all. He's making me read stuff that is philosophy. He loves to read.
Amazing.
And my daughter is absolutely phenomenal. I mean, she's an investor for M12, which is the Microsoft's venture wing, and she invested. Cool. And she has done 3 Ironmans. 3 Ironmans. All starting, the one that she did at the age of 22, she did it in 13 hours. The next one in 14 and a half. The last one she did at the age of 33, she finished in 16 and a half hours. I said, stop, stop. But the brave, how brave she is, jumping into the Hudson River, swimming 2.5 miles, 122 miles of bicycling, 26 miles of running. She's she's taught me no holds barred, Dad.
Yeah.
You can do it.
Talk about pushing yourself, like
pushing yourself,
pushing the limits.
And she has a very challenging job too. She enjoys it. But one thing we did with all our children, fortunately, they are following their own passion. Just like a good parent, you say, hey, don't get carried away. In this case, Ironman, don't get carried away. But, she's really taught me that, everything is mental. She says that, Ironman, Dad, is ultimately, at the end, your body is given way. There's no question. But the mind is driving you to finish it within 17 hours. Mind is driving you. And I feel like, the mental strength that she's taught me is enormous.
That's amazing. Oh, man. And I love that. And I love one is how you're learning from your children too. Just like,
you're learning. I mean, I'm constantly learning from them. I observe them in my own way. I don't always talk, but I observe them. And you know what? My brothers, my siblings, enormous sacrifice on their part. They were as smart as I am. I know genetically they are there, as smart. They did not get the kind of support I got when I was growing up. First, I was 12 years difference. And my father was doing a lot better. They were not refugees anymore out on the street. But my brothers faced a lot of the brunt of it. But they single-mindedly gave me the support, especially after my mother passed away. And I have to say, what? That's the community. I cannot ever be more thankful.
You never forget that.
Never
forget that. That's absolutely beautiful. And as you're thinking about on your younger days, if you could give any advice to your 21-year-old self, what would it be? My
21-year-old self. Well, you know what? I would say that never, ever feel like, you've had a failure and don't make yourself feel little by that. Because I've had lots of failure and I felt like, even to this day, I feel like, oh my God, I stood up there and I made a real ass of myself. I said these things, I reflect on it and I said, ooh, how scary that was,
By the way, I still have those moments where it's like I'm reliving it. You're just like, oh.
So I would say don't do that because it's human to, make mistakes, but don't punish yourself for it. Perhaps there's something in my upbringing that always made me feel like I needed to be punished at the end of the day. But, in spite of that, I've survived and done fine. I've impacted the lives of lots of consumers, et cetera, built organizations. I would say, if I were 21 today, I would take more risks and become an entrepreneur because I truly am very entrepreneurial in my own way. But having said that, I would not lose out on all the learnings I've had working in a big corporation, working with many, many people, top-notch people. So I think, and then I would say, I might have worked myself too hard and not smelt the roses enough. Don't forget to take time off to pursue something that's experiential for you, whatever that is.
Absolutely.
Whatever that is, don't shortchange yourself on that.
I mean, again, it just reminds me of when you were working your tail off in Colombia and that didn't stop you from enjoying New York City. And
within the limits of affordability.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be much. Like,
it doesn't have to be much, And yet in my community of Asians, I feel that our children are driven to a point where they may be missing out on idle time. First of all, computers have taken over and things like that, and texting is taken over. Idle time is the time when your brain is making connections, believe it or not, making your brain cells, and the creative part of it is idling and dreaming of possibilities is something that all young people, 21-year-olds should continue to do.
Absolutely.
I applaud my son, who's 26 years old, and said, well, I'm taking a risk. I'm starting this company, and he reads a lot, he makes connections, but he reaches out to the external world, and I feel like, wow, that's a life maybe I should have had, when I was 21.
But honestly, hearing your story, I think you found a very entrepreneurial avenue within P&G. It doesn't sound like it wasn't entrepreneurial.
No,
it definitely was.
Very, very. And the kind of brands I worked on or helped create had to be entrepreneurial.
Those are startups. Those are little
startups.
Those are startups.
All startups. You put the nail on the head.
Those are startups.
Aleve was a startup. Rallisec was a startup. Crest White Strips was a startup in its own rights. And credit to P&G that they allowed me to do that.
That's absolutely beautiful. And I honestly don't know a better place to wrap things up. Shekhar, you've been so generous with your time. I will take you up on I will see you in Cincinnati.
Absolutely. Or Florida.
Florida. Yeah, exactly. Thank you again for your time. I had a blast. Absolutely. And I think every listener is going to find so much inspiration, value from this conversation. So thank you.
And I learned a lot from you, John. I really did. The way you summarized, the way you took away messages and summarized it, I think those are as valuable, if not more valuable to the listener, I believe.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I'll see you again soon.
Bye.
That's all for this episode of the Biotech Startups podcast. We hope you enjoyed our 4-part series with Shekhar Mitra. Be sure to tune into our next series, where we chat with Noam Solomon, CEO and co-founder at Immunai, a pioneering biotech company that is comprehensively mapping and reprogramming the immune system with single-cell biology and AI to power new therapeutic discoveries, accelerate drug development, and improve patient outcomes. Prior to founding Immunai, Noam had a dual career in both industry and academia. Noam has a double PhD in math and computer science and served as a postdoctoral researcher at MIT and Harvard University. Noam also worked as an algorithms developer and a data scientist, consultant, and head of data science in several high-tech companies in Israel. Noam's extensive background in math, computer science, AI, and machine learning gives him a depth of experiences that founders can learn from. The Biotech Startups podcast is produced by Exceeder. Don't want to miss an episode? Search for the Biotech Startups podcast wherever you get your podcasts and click subscribe. Exceeder provides research labs with equipment leases on founder-friendly terms to support paths to exceptional outcomes. To learn more, visit our website www.exceder.com. On behalf of the team here at Exceeder, thanks for listening. The Biotech Startups podcast provides general insights into the life science sector through the experiences of its guests. The use of information on this podcast or materials linked from the podcast is at the user's own risk. The views expressed by the participants are their own and are not the views of Exceeder or sponsors. No reference to any product, service, or company in the podcast is an endorsement by Exceeder or its guests.